Welcome back to Sunday in America with your host, Brian Glenn.
Today, he is going to be meeting at the White House with Volodymyr Zelensky, as well as what I call Volodymyr Zelensky's entourage, a number of European Union leaders.
Didn't exactly go super well the first time.
Why don't you wear a suit? Do you own a suit?
Maybe something like yours, yes. Maybe something better. I don't. We will see.
So the number one question right now: will he be wearing a suit?
Brian, go ahead, Brian.
Yes, sir. I've got a question for each of you. First of all, Mr. President Zelensky, you look fabulous in that suit.
I said the same.
Yeah, you look good.
I said the same thing.
Yeah,
Isn't that nice? That's the one that attacked you last time. See, now he's in.
I remember that.
I apologize to you. You look wonderful. No, my first question for you, President Zelensky.
In the same suit. You see, I changed. You are not.
Maybe yours is much better. It's Tuesday, the fallout of the big Oval Office meeting with Zelensky and President Trump. Now, the country went crazy over my question.
There was a funny moment where at the last meeting in February, a reporter for Real America's Voice, Brian Glenn, gave Zelensky a hard time about not wearing a suit. Well, he was there again today, and as I mentioned, Zelensky is wearing close to a suit.
The Trump administration has worked hard to reshape the White House press corps and staff it with friendly outlets.
You've seen Brian Glenn, who is very prominent on social media, who was the one who first asked Zelensky about his suit in the last meeting and then engaged in this back and forth about this today and had this banter with the president. The pool looks nothing like what it used to, and they talk a lot about how transparent they are and how much more visible this president is. And yes, he is certainly more visible than Joe Biden was, but they have shaped the pool so that the rigorous questioning he gets is far more limited than it used to be. He does still get some, but it is not what it once was, so that we don't ask questions like what David was just pointing to, which is, where do things actually stand? Is Putin actually giving anything up? How do you have any condemnation of Putin? Why did you switch from what you said on Friday? We really haven't heard a lot of that.
But really the big story here is how the respect level that President Zelensky had for President Trump and the Oval Office, and the fact that we've given his country over $380 billion plus in aid to help fight that war against Russia. So we had the multilateral meeting in the East Room. We'll see the next step would be to put Putin and Zelensky together, perhaps with President Trump, and then ultimately have a trilateral meeting with Trump and all three of them get it done. Okay, so I'm still in the DC studio. We have a brand new studio. This is kind of a makeshift area that we did amongst the cubicles and things. We're still building out the official studio. But today I've got two international press hits I've got to do, one for the BBC and one for another outlet. Then I'll head over to the White House in the briefing room as Carolyn Levitt has a 1 p.m. press briefing. I can only imagine what they're going to ask.
Brian is a #1 correspondent here at the White House and a good friend of mine. So what happened with Zelensky? You two have a past, you guys talked. Che è successo con Zelensky? Insomma, vi siete rapportati, adesso you guys have found each other again.
It was a really funny moment being in the Oval Office and Zelensky showing up with the suit, and so I wanted to compliment him.
È stato un momento molto divertente nell'ufficio ovale vedere Zelensky con un vestito, because you were the one who asked him why wasn't he wearing a suit, perché lui era quello che gli aveva chiesto perché non hai un abito, ti sei messo un vestito 6 mesi fa, e quindi lo volevo complimentare. And then what happened?
Yeah, and then he actually, said thank you, but then kind of clapped back at me and said, well, I'm wearing a different suit, but you're wearing the same suit.
Let's talk to him right now, shall we? Brian Glenn is White House correspondent of Real America's Voice. Good to have you with us on LBC, Mr. Glenn. Let's go back to February, that question you decided to ask Volodymyr Zelensky about his suit. Why was that what you decided to push him on?
Well, there had always been so much speculation amongst Americans that why doesn't, Zelensky ever put on proper attire when he's visiting, world leaders? And so that was a question that had actually been circulating for a while, so that when he showed up to the Oval Office back in February, it wasn't wearing a suit. I thought it was rather appropriate to ask that question. Now, that question was not meant to insult Ukrainians. It was not meant to diminish the value of what's going on in the war. It was simply calling out maybe what we perceived as a lack of self-respect for the presidency, for the Oval Office, and for really $380+ billion that American taxpayers have been contributing towards this fight
what was
against
disrespectful
Russia.
about it?
Well, you know, this is the highest office in the world. I think you and I can both agree. There's no other higher figure than President Trump as well on a global stage. And it's just that's the attire when you go to the White House. That's what President Trump
not if you're
demands.
Elon Musk and you turn up in a T-shirt and a baseball cap. No one had a problem then. You didn't grill Elon Musk about it.
Well, here's the biggest difference about that. Elon Musk was saving American taxpayers billions of dollars in his Doge, and we were given. Well, it's a big difference. Elon Musk is saving
that's not the point you were making. The point you were making is it's disrespectful to go into the Oval Office not being suitably dressed. I mean, there is a photo of Elon Musk in a T-shirt and a ridiculous hat clowning around in the Oval Office.
Yeah, your question I've heard a dozen times, and I'm going to answer it just like I'm answering it now. Elon Musk is saving American taxpayers money. We are giving Ukraine hundreds of billions of dollars. There is a big difference.
So it's not really then about what you wear in the Oval Office. It's about the history. It's about Zelensky.
I tell you what, why don't you try it? You come to the Oval Office and we'll see what happens if you show up in a T-shirt.
But why is it, Elon, why is it okay? If the point is, isn't it?
You're missing the point here.
No, I'm not missing the point.
American taxpayers are giving Ukraine. Let me ask you, if someone provides you with billions of dollars, wouldn't you want to somewhat show appreciation? You show up in a proper
in the same
attire?
way as if I was a businessman and the president had appointed me to a very, very senior, powerful position, I would wear a suit to work. Yes, Elon Musk didn't. I think that's disrespectful, isn't it?
Well, I don't see it that way, nor do the American people. So I'll just say it that.
What did you make?
The American people, look, the only people saying that are people who hate President Trump to begin with. Anybody in the MAGA base sees what Elon Musk did for the American people, saving waste, fraud, and abuse. They like what he did. They don't care if he shows up in a bathing suit. But when you're giving someone, another country, billions of dollars, there is a level of appreciation, and is a suit too much to put on? But I will say this, Ben, yesterday was a complete 180.
Go on.
From that Oval Office. I mean, I told myself, Ben, if he was to come in wearing a suit, the first thing I was going to do was congratulate him. I said he looked fantastic. He looks great. I apologized. See, you like that? I apologized to him. And then he threw a little zinger back at me, which,
what did you make of that? Because
I loved it. I actually loved it.
He pointed out that he changed his suit and you were wearing the same one. Was it the same suit, Mr. Glenn?
No, technically it wasn't the same suit. It was
so
another
he was
navy
wrong.
blue suit.
Okay.
Well, you know, I think it was a funny joke. I took it really well, Ben. I really did. I think it loosened up that moment in the Oval Office. And you know what? From that point on, I remember making eye contact with President Zelensky multiple times, and it was kind of like a gentleman's nod, kind of like, okay, we're good. Okay, we're good. It was just a fun moment.
You think he's forgiven you?
I think he has. I think he has.
I mean, I come back to the point slightly, Mr. Glenn. Journalists around the world would kill, frankly, like me, to be able to ask questions to two of the most consequential men in the world right now. We've got a war that's left hundreds of thousands dead. We've got massive geopolitical consequences and fallout and so on. Was there really nothing more significant to ask about than his sartorial choices?
Well, that's my question for him. Now, my question for President Trump was he wants to go down as a peacemaker. This was the other question that really didn't get covered on that press conference. I said, you want to go down as a peacemaker. How big is this right now to settle this conflict between Russia and Ukraine? I want peace more than anyone. I tell you what, my question yesterday.
Well, I don't think you want peace more than most of the Ukrainian people, respectfully.
Well,
because it's their sons and brothers and fathers that are being put on the front line. So I think
I agree.
They want peace.
Well, I will say this, Ben, out of full transparency, if you walk the streets of America and you ask 100 people, give me the top 5 concerns in your life right now, then I can promise you, out of those 100 people, no one is saying, I want peace between Russia and Ukraine.
Same in Britain, I'm sure.
In all due respect. Exactly. So, but personally, do I want to see kids die in Ukraine and Russia? Of course not.
Sure.
Neither do you.
No, but you also don't want to see Vladimir Putin emboldened and go waltzing into Moldova or Finland.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question. And it's just someone who I don't live over there. I got ocean privilege, thank God, right? Has Putin ever claimed that he's going to take over Europe? Has he ever said he wants to?
Well, you'll remember, Brian, he denied the week before invading Ukraine that he was going to invade Ukraine. So I would put it to you that he is not a man whose word can be taken ever at face value, to put it mildly. Would you agree?
I'll accept that. I agree.
Interesting. Thank you for coming on. Enjoyed our conversation. Mr. Brian Glenn, White House correspondent at Real America's Voice, the man who sparked a global debate about Volodymyr Zelensky's suit.
Earlier, I caught up with Brian and asked him about their infamous meetings.
He showed up, obviously. I made the comment about his suit, and then Vice President J.D. Vance also jumped in there, and we all know how the rest of that press conference went. Yesterday, very different scenario. As soon as he got out of the vehicle there to meet the president at the West Wing, the president obviously very pleased with how he was dressed, put his hand on his shoulder, made some great gestures, talked to the media for a second, and went inside. And I think that was the very beginning of what would be, I call, a very successful meeting in the Oval Office.
Brian, can I ask you, do you regret what you said to him back in February?
You know, I don't. And I regret that it might have hurt a lot of people in Ukraine. They might have taken it as a very disrespectful comment made to the country. And I want to make sure that everyone in Ukraine knows that, I've always prayed for peace for that country and for Russia and for the world, if that matter. But I don't regret saying the comments, because I think he needed to understand the gravity of being in the Oval Office and meeting with President Trump. Look, funding this war, over $380 million plus in military aid and equipment, is a big deal to the American taxpayers. We're $37 trillion in debt. So it hasn't been a very popular thing. I did not mean to insult the people of Ukraine by any means.
And we'll come to the seriousness of what we are trying to resolve in Ukraine in a moment. But in terms of his witty response to your comment yesterday, was that the best way of disarming the situation, do you think?
I think it was. I love his comment back to me, to be honest with you. And I knew coming into this that if he was going to wear a suit, I was going to congratulate him on it. I said he looked fabulous. And I really want to kind of apologize to him and say, hey, I'm glad that we can come together again and have a different type of conversation. His response back to me, I thought was pretty clever. I thought it was brilliant, creative. It was funny. I've never seen the president laugh as much as he did. And it wasn't any type of mean mugging or anything like that. I think it was just a friendly reminder that, hey, we're here. Let's move on and let's get this peace deal done.
And aside from the sartorial elegance of anyone in that room, what was it like to be there for what felt like quite a significant moment?
It was. I got to tell you, it's always an honor to step in that Oval Office, especially when we have a world leader there. When we first came in, obviously the amount of media, and you know this because you guys are in the business, it was massive. It was the most amount of media I've ever seen at the White House. And no one knew what to expect. We're only going off of what we saw in February. So it was a level of intensity, but I really think once it started, it obviously relaxed, and I think that we ended on a high note.
We'll be right back with more Sunday in America here on Real America's Voice.